Hey guys, this is B Word here at the Bleach Brothers podcast. Just a friendly reminder that we are sponsored by Jerky Pro, and if you are a fan of jerky, make sure to go to www.jerky.pro. Use code BleachBros5 at checkout to get yourself a little bit of a discount. Both Jake and I are huge fans of jerky, and Jake working in the beef industry and me being just a fellow fat kid, we absolutely swear by Jerky Pro. You will not miss out by ordering Jerky Pro. Do not let some of the sticker shock you. There are free shipping options, multiple flavors, etc., so forth. If you do order Jerky Pro, make sure to use code BleachBros5 at checkout.
Hey guys, this is Sprague with 1080 The Fan, and you're listening to the douchiest guys I've ever met in my life, the Bleach Bros podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review. Or don't, because they suck.
Welcome into the Bleach Brothers podcast. This is B Word, and as usual, I am here with my good buddy Jake. Jake, it's so much different recording with you over the internet again. We had such a fucking blast in Arizona.
I like the internet more. The internet's better. It's good for porn. It's good to buy things. It's good to... I'm more comfortable in my room. Because the one problem I had fans notice that I didn't talk as much in the last one. Mind you, there was four bros having a lot. But I you know me, when I get uncomfortable or out of my rhythm, I don't do well. My Sheldon brain comes in because I had sweat. Where is a spot that you hate having sweat and you can feel the drip?
I'm so happy you brought this up. So to kind of recap, because I have to go into this. To recap, we went down to Arizona. We watched your Cardinals beat my Cowboys, right?
Yeah, go Cardinals forever.
And everybody shit on me for it. But you know what? It was a blast. So I would recreate it 10 times over with the same outcome just because we had such a good time. But It was so fucking hot on that blacktop walking to your brother's truck that
you almost died.
Dude, I sweat out of fucking everywhere. And here's two things. Number one, your brother is pretty like conservative with his air conditioning. It's almost as if he likes his truck at like 75 degrees.
He likes his windows down when he drives. He does not like to use the air conditioner.
Right.
So everywhere else we go, he drives. He did say this when you got out of the car. He goes, I don't think B-Word likes the windows down. I go, why? He goes, every time I roll them down, I look back and this is B-Word's face.
Well, no. Here's the funny fucking part, dude. So it's so fucking hot as I'm getting into the back of this truck, right? And he's got leather seats or the pleather seats or whatever it is, right? So like there's no reprieve from this heat. So at one point he turns on the air conditioning, but it's not all the way low, or at least I don't think it's all the way low. So I actually roll down the window of the back seat of his truck so that way I can get fresh air because I'm so fucking hot and I'm sweating out of everywhere. I was like the little kid. I was like, I'm sweaty from my butt crack to my balls, like everywhere I was sweating. And you know what your fucking brother did? Love him to death. But you know what he did? He fucking rolled the goddamn window up like the bot air's leaving. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, I'm trying. So I sweat out of everywhere, dude. By the time you guys dropped me off at the airport, my clothes were soaked. They were fucking soaked. And then I smelled myself and I was like, holy shit, I'm musky. So to answer your question specifically, where's the worst place to sweat? In between your toes.
See, mine is behind my knees, like where you're.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Like, so when we were sitting recording, that was where I was going with this. When we were sitting recording, it was hot, and I was in shorts, and the sweat was dripping from the top of my legs, rolling under my legs, and it was like that scene in Jurassic Park where it's like the molecules and where's the water go when fucking Ian Malcolm's like going nuts. The water wouldn't drip on the ground; it would roll and just stay on my body. Gravity was not helping out, so the Earth is flat apparently because my sweat drips weren't falling.
I mean, you can say that, but yeah, the in between my toes was the worst because I was walking through the airport and I felt like I was just going with every step, and I was just over it.
See, my feet are always cold. So even when they're sweaty, they're cold. So that's the thing. I don't sweat in the butt cracks fine. Sweaty balls is a thing. I think I'm just used to it as a man now. Yeah. But I also hate this. I'm a little chubbier, like in the midsection now, right? And when I sit, I have some folds, right? And I hate when I sit up and I feel that breeze because I just know there's just been sweat between those folds just sitting there. And it really bothers me. I don't like it.
That's not a new concept for me, Jacob.
I know. That's why I'm telling you that I'm new to this club and I do not enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you we had a blast. Earlier this week, we recorded the Hateful Gnomes Music Hut, and one of the things that you mentioned was that your brother was in control of the music on our way down to Phoenix. And at one point, like, I was like, is there Christmas music playing? And then it was like Marvin Gaye came on, and then, you know, it went right to like Atreyu, and like, who the hell's playlist? As a matter of fact, I think I actually asked, I'm like, whose phone is playing this music? So it got me thinking, and I think it got you thinking as well. There's some really good fucking musicians. There's some really poor musicians, but there's also really good musicians that shouldn't mix with good musicians. And like, so I'm going to ask you this: what was the song that you just looked over and you're like, what the fuck is this on that playlist?
I don't remember. But I remembered making that face. And there's another one. I'm not a Rise Against fan, and every time they came on, I'd hit it. My brother got so mad at me. He goes, "This is my fucking radio." I was like, "I don't care. I don't like this band." He goes, "Well, what about it?" I'm like, "Caleb, why are we going to listen to stuff that you don't like? It's your playlist." He goes,
"Yeah,
well, I'm not." Unlike me, or most people aren't like me, where I have everything on my playlist, even if I don't like it.
Right.
For other people, my brother is not that person. But I can't remember the song now, B-word, because it was one of those things. My brother is like me with movies and music. Like, he likes the stuff that people don't like. Like, you know what I mean? There's a reason that stuff exists.
Right.
And there are times I look at him going, wow, I've never heard of this band. I've never heard of this song. I've never heard of any of this. I never want to hear it again, but okay, we're down for it. So
there was one point that I asked your brother, I was like, are these songs on your phone? Is this a particular playlist? And he's like, no, there's a little bit of everything on here. As a matter of fact, occasionally you'll even hear a Kids Bop music.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why, Caleb? Like, why? And like, I understand how the algorithms pull it, you know, just knowing his circumstances, but I'm just like, why? Like, why wouldn't you create another playlist? But that got me thinking too, that, you know, speaking of Kids Bop, there's some artists that are out there, bro.
I like that you're bringing this full circle because I know the rundown, and the way you're doing this is hilarious to me. So just keep doing what you're doing, people.
The way that, like, the whole Kids Bop thing, right? It's weird, it's crazy. Like, you got the I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, I'm for real by the whitest, blondest kid that you'll ever see. But we're going to talk about some artists tonight. One in particular that's had some controversies, and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. Do you think Michael Jackson listens to Kids Bop or listened to Kids Bop?
I think he was the reason Kids Bop was created.
You think so?
I think that's really what it is. I think Kids Bop was created for Michael Jackson parties.
Yeah. So recently I was listening to a Versus on Spotify, and it was Chris Brown and Usher. And have you ever heard of Versus? Do you know what this is?
Yeah, to explain what these are, because I don't really get it. So tell me what a
So
Versus
is basically where one artist puts their song catalog against another artist's song catalog. So some of the more popular ones have been like Lil Jon and T-Pain. When really I think that T-Pain probably should have went against
Akon.
Akon, yeah. Akon. So but Chris Brown and Usher have a Versus playlist. So basically it just goes one Chris Brown song, one Usher song, one Chris Brown song, and it lasts for like 7-8 hours. So I was rocking out to it while I was at work the other day. And then, you know, it got me thinking that Chris Brown is a fucking douchebag, but I appreciate his music. I like his music. I like the songs on his music. I like his albums. R. Kelly is probably one of the most talented R&B artists that has come out potentially ever. And I like his songs. I like his music. I like everything about his craft. Michael Jackson is arguably the best pop artist ever. Probably the best performer ever. But with those three people, like, they all have some controversy behind them, right? Like, R. Kelly's peed on people. He's molested and raped people. You know, Chris Brown, you know, beat the shit out of Rihanna. And you know, Michael Jackson has apparently touched little boys in wrong places. Now, I will be honest here when I say this. As we posted on social media this week asking, can we separate the artist from the craft? One of the fellow podcasters that we're associated with made the distinction that Michael Jackson was acquitted. So, like, I have to acknowledge that he was acquitted. However, there's still some controversy there. So let me ask this question to you, Jake. When it comes to music, can you separate the artist from the craft?
Yes, we've talked about this before, and I'm not calling you out on that. If fans, longtime fans have heard me say this, but yes, I can. I have gotten to the point in my life where I can disconnect things and say, okay, I like that song. Like, I like R. Kelly's music. I have a bunch of it. I don't like R. Kelly as a person. Now, mind you, and I'm just going to throw this one out there, and I know the easy person I always go to is like Hitler, right? But like, let's just say Hitler had a bluegrass band.
Right.
I don't think I could listen to it, and I think that's where people have a problem. I know you have before, whether it be, I don't know, like a stance on like a an actor or something. If you don't agree with their beliefs or something, like you have a harder and I tell me if I'm wrong here, Beaver, you have a harder time than me, like looking past those things, like fuck that guy, don't care, don't want to hear what they have to say, do that. I really can give a shit about somebody's political standings, how they're doing, but there is levels. Like, for an example, Lost Prophets, right? I don't know if you remember that band, but that lead singer was caught child molestation, like raping babies, okay, and selling them online. That became to a level where I was like, wow, okay, no, never again. Mind you, I wasn't a huge Lost Prophets fan anyways. I think there's a line in the sand for everybody, and there's a ranking system. And I'm not saying you say this one's worse than this one or whatever, but like what I mean by that is Michael Jackson was at the highest peak of everything, right? Like, he was the biggest star in the world.
Right.
So there is that level, like you couldn't go anywhere without knowing who he was, anything, hearing something by him. 2, my age at the time of when things were happening and my understanding behind it.
They were perfect for Michael Jackson.
Right. But one of my point is like, I was going through it, like going, I don't really have a real understanding of it. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like now it's like looking back, having children, it's like, holy shit. And then third is, do I actually like the material, the artistry they're putting out? Because that'll make a difference, right? Like, for example, I'm not really a Lost Prophets fan, right? So I'm already not going to listen to their shit. It's easy for me to say, fuck them. I want that guy to die. I'll never do it again. It is harder for me to say, fuck Michael Jackson, I want him to die, I never want him to do it again. In the sense, like, I think it's sick what he did or whatever he was acquitted of or whatever, right? But there's so much of his music that I grew up with that was a part of my generational growth and things I was into and stuff that are connected to me. That's why I can disconnect. Because it's like, I remember as a kid, and we're going to get into songs and stuff, but you remember I was on the baseball team. When I would warm up on the mound, I would have my headphones on and I'd be listening to songs by Michael Jackson and stuff like that. And that's a big thing for me. So there is that. But I mean, do you feel that same way?
I do feel that same way. I think that you can take the artist and separate it from the craft and appreciate the artistry of it, rather than appreciating the person. And I think that that's, you mentioned that I have a hard time with actors or whatever. And I guess let me quantify that or clarify that a little bit. I do have an issue with people who are full of themselves or people who think that their way is the right way, regardless of opinion or regardless of whatever. And when they try to push that on you, that's probably the level that I take it to, is like, no, I don't want to deal with that. But I can still appreciate their role, or I can still appreciate their film or their whatever. But to kind of add to this, so the podcaster that reminded us that the MJ was acquitted, I guess, was Derek from the Derek Duvall Show. The Bromigos podcast, I imagine this is Matt from the Bromigos podcast, said, we've said this early on, we don't support what R. Kelly did, but we're still fucking to his music. And I appreciate that, because I fucked to R. Kelly's music too. McShane from the Whiskey Hell podcast said, I've had a really hard time looking past major things. The talent is without a doubt amazing, but I can't get past stars that have done some really horrid stuff. So he talks about Kevin Spacey being a raper, Bill Cosby being a raper, Karl Malone fathered a kid with a 13-year-old. I think that that's one of those ones that, as we've gotten older, is probably a little bit better. And then he also mentions Amber Heard and her issues with Johnny Depp. I have no clue what the Jacked Up podcast review show is talking about with Prince. I don't remember any controversies with Prince. Maybe you do. but I fuck with Prince. I like Prince, but we actually had two comments on here as well from people that we're not necessarily associated with. It says, if you can't separate the art from the artist, you won't be left with much to enjoy. And that's from Canary PI J Henry. I don't know who that is. I agree with that statement 100%. I think people in general are just shitty. They're just shitty humans. They do wrong things. And I think that, if you discriminate like that, that very well means that you're without some of that entertainment. And then DeAndre Robinson, if I'm butchering your name and you're listening to this, I apologize, but they mentioned art versus artist. And I agree with that, man. I think that especially when it comes to Michael Jackson, we're going to talk a little bit more about him today. I love his music, man. I love everything from Little Michael to Old Michael to Pig Nose Michael to No Nose Michael to hanging a baby over a balcony Michael.
Wacko Jacko.
Like I love almost everything about him as far as his talent goes and his artistry. He wouldn't be somebody that I'd want to hang out with, assuming that he was still alive, and he wouldn't be somebody that I'd let babysit my kids. But I think that as far as his talent goes, he's arguably one of the most talented individuals that has ever walked the earth.
I agree with that. I guess I would hang out with him. I think it would just be interesting. It'd be more like almost like an interview, right? But like, is he like a top celebrity that I want to like share a beer with, as they say, like go and have one, like, and like sit and actually have full depth conversations? No, because I don't think there would be anything there. Right. Of validity between either of us. I don't think I would have any interesting points that he would want to hear and vice versa. The babysitting the kids thing, totally agree. Because it was interesting because this came up it's funny how we come up with rundowns at times, because this came up because I was talking to some friends about the documentary that we're going to get into later, Leaving Neverland, and I was bringing it up to you, and then we were talking music, and it all just came full circle. Like, right. We've done this before with the Cosby episode, maybe getting a little deep and stuff, but like, my big goal with these stars and like how it is I try not to be a hypocrite. And my big point is on that is I can let the Michael Jackson stuff go, as I was saying. So I try to do that with everybody. And I try to be fair and biased with it, because I do find myself being like, I'm never going to like a perfect example for me was my mom's political standing is a one way, right? And she was watching a comedian and they were making fun of her political party at the time. And I hated it because she wanted to turn it off. And I'm like, you can't just turn something off because you don't agree with it or you don't like it. And so that was a point for me, which everybody's different. She can have that opinion. That's totally fine. There's a lot of people out there in the world that do that. I try to not be that way, but am I guilty of it? Fuck yeah. I'm guilty of it all the time. There are plenty of times where I have a hard time with it. But I mean, as you were saying, there's been lots of musicians in controversy. I can't really think of the Prince one. I mean, I know the album controversy. And I really hope that's not what he's talking about. But if you had to, I'm not trying to rank these guys, but I mean, out of the three, let's just do the three big ones: R. Kelly, Chris Brown, and Michael Jackson that you came up with. Who's the worst out of this?
That's tough, man. So I'm going to go with the assumption that Michael Jackson did do things that he was accused of doing to little boys. I don't think that you can outweigh R. Kelly and Michael Jackson, assuming that because it's both sexual assault. The only difference is that the sexual assault happened to, they both happened to minors. So I don't know that you can. I mean, if you're going to hold my feet to the fire here, I guess I'm going to say, when you start talking about some of the kids that Michael Jackson is supposedly being with, where they're, cancer kids and that sort of stuff. And
just so you know, I'm not holding your feet to the fire. I just want you to be aware of that. I want to make what I was trying to do is make a point of how hard this is. Yeah, how hard this is to look at. Like, who do you make worst?
Yeah, and I guess if I were to say, you're taking advantage of kids, but also sick kids, and that might be worse if I were to rank it that way. I don't know that I can separate what R. Kelly did and what Michael Jackson was accused of doing. Now, I don't agree with what Chris Brown did at all. I don't think you ever put hands on a woman. I don't care if a woman's slapping me in the face. I'm not hitting her. That's not me. That's not what I'm about. And what he did with Rihanna was atrocious. She may have hit him. I don't know the whole circumstances. Regardless, it doesn't give him the right to hit her. He beat the shit out of her, dude, and that's not cool. But I think if I'm going to measure somebody's sin, I'm going to say, for me, not being, the deity here that's judging people per se, but acting as the human judge, I've got to say sexual assault, man, is a terrible, terrible thing. And like bruises heal. I don't want to diminish domestic violence in any way, but bruises heal. Sexual assault sticks with you with every sexual partner that you have from there forward.
Well, also like the mindset of a child versus an adult is always hugely different. I'm not saying sexual assault against an adult is far less, egregious as doing sexual assault to, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But I feel like having children and hearing about grooming and like what people do is just, it's upsetting because you know how malleable your child's brain is.
They're so vulnerable, man.
Right. And
it's,
like when you hear stories of it, it's like they're just like, well, I thought I was going to get in trouble, or I thought, this, or they didn't. I didn't want to get them in trouble. And so there's all those mindsets of like, it's almost like that Santa Claus syndrome of like, I don't want to not believe and tell everybody, but you know what I mean? Right. Like, and so that makes it hard. That makes it really hard.
It does make it hard. And then of course you've got people out there like Cosby who, was in prison and is now out on the street. And we've got a whole episode about Cosby. If you haven't listened to that and you're interested, go back and watch or listen to that one. Nostalgic Puddin' Pops, I think is what it was called. It was like February of 22 that it came out or something. But regardless, it's one of those things that I don't like when people are shitty humans, and I don't like when shitty humans hurt other humans for their own gain, and it really takes away the innocence of somebody else. Or the trust of somebody else, or whatever that is. So I'm gonna defer on that to you if you have a different opinion, which I don't think that you do. But real quick before we go any farther down this road, why don't we go ahead and take a real quick break, and we'll be right back.
Download, subscribe, and listen to Whiskey Hill Podcast. We're the new show that doesn't hold back on today's ridiculousness. We're not on the right and we're not on the left. We call it the way we see it, and we're going to make you laugh while doing it. Throw in some great craft beer and you cannot lose. Download Whiskey Hill Podcast anywhere you enjoy listening, and check out whiskeyhillpod.com for more.
Have you ever thought about having a beer with Ted Bundy?
Or been anally probed at Area 51?
Perhaps go to dinner with Jeffrey Dahmer?
Taking a car ride with JFK?
Or enter a romantic relationship with O.J. Simpson? If so, then crack a cold one.
The Pub Time Podcast just might be for you.
Welcome back into the Bleach Bros podcast. Thank you for helping us pay some bills. It always makes it nice when everybody listens to those, and buy some jerky. Jerky Pro.
Jerky Pro's legit, dude.
Jerky Bro is legit. It was funny. I was on their website, and they now have Satan's Toe Lollipop, the world's hottest gummy bear, Carolina Reaper Poppers, the Blue Pocky Chip, and then they have their Nuclear Diablo whatever jerky. But they have exotics now and stuff. But really good stuff. Love that they're still our sponsor. Use our Bleach Bros 5 at checkout. You'll save some money and get some really good shit. Where are we at, B-Word, with this? I mean, I love the rundown tonight. You came up with a good one. We are talking Michael Jackson, but I mean, do you just want to get into the review of Leaving Neverland?
Yeah, so the way that this came up, just so that way everybody knows, when Jake and I make a rundown, there's usually some sort of backstory to the rundown. It's either something we've been talking about before, somebody's talking with us about it, whatever. But you had some friends that had asked you specifically about Leaving Neverland, and if you had watched it. And when you presented it to me, it was almost like it was a brand new documentary. And I was like, well, hold on. I think I watched this one a few years ago. So I think it came out in like 2017 or 2018, if I'm not mistaken. But it was an HBO documentary. I want to say it was like 4 hours long total, maybe 4 different episodes. And the big thing about it was it was a look at the accusations from 2 different kids through their eyes. Of Michael Jackson, their relationship, things that they accused him of doing, some of the court stuff behind it, the family's influence on this as well. And it was hard to watch, at least when I watched it. And you watched it recently. Full disclosure, I haven't rewatched it, but I did watch it a few years ago. Tell me, Jake, real quick, since it's still pretty new to you as far as watching it, what was your biggest takeaway, man?
I wasn't surprised.
Yeah,
Like it's sort of like the funny thing is like when we talked about it earlier, but when you watched like the Robin Williams documentary about his like death, right? Or you watched and we did an episode on that, and you watched the documentary on Bill Cosby. Like I was fully surprised of the shit that came out. And when I was watching the Michael Jackson one, it was like he was one of those people. I remember when we were a kid, and he was accused of being a pedo, and it was like, you realized he was hanging out with kids and he had a place called Neverland. He never wanted to grow up, and just everything around him. Right. And then it was like, you were like, yeah, I could see it. I guess it was one of those things. Like, it's just it's almost blatantly obvious in front of your face that you're like, that's why when I watched it, I was like, okay, I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm going into. I mean, of course I knew what happened, but also in the back of my mind, it's like anything that came out, I was like, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. Like I said, with Bill Cosby, it was like, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to do this. I didn't expect those little things. Like, and I guess that's what makes this the hardest thing. Cause like, it's like, one, are you reviewing the actual documentary itself? Yes, we're going to do that. But two, we're actually reviewing like the concepts behind it and the actions in it and the people in it and stuff like that. And that's what made this hard, because everybody in it wasn't surprised. The stories seemed, it wasn't a bad documentary by any means, but it was almost like, just like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Like, and
Yeah.
so that was a hard thing for me for the watch of like, I didn't feel at any point like I was learning something new, even though I was learning something new in my mind. It was like so blatantly out in the open, like, no,
Right.
again, no shit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that came out about Michael Jackson that, we knew, that were at least made public prior to this documentary. We knew he had a terrible upbringing. His dad was abusive. There were some questionable relationships when he was a child. Namely, I think I want to say that, in one of the things that I saw, it was intimated that Diana Ross and Michael Jackson may have had, some sort of relationship, that may or may not have been sexual, when he was a kid. The one thing, at least in my experience and with my talking with people who have gone through this, because I think, especially for girls, 1 in 6 women have been raped, or have had sexual assault in their lives. That's a large number, but then it's so far underreported for boys or men who have been raped or sexually assaulted, and I think that part of that is the ego, and also embarrassment and shame and everything that men don't want to expose themselves to. And not to say that women choose to do that, and I'm not trying to dissect that, but that being the case, the victims, or the alleged victims within this, are two little boys ultimately. At least the two perspectives that you have. The one thing that I found hard to watch on this, which is also another reason why I didn't want to rewatch it, to be candid, is two things. Number one, you're looking through it through their point of view, and there's not necessarily an argument from the other point of view. Like, the most mention that happens from in defense of Michael Jackson is the estate came out and just said, no, these are all false, and he was acquitted. And I get that. I think, at least, when we were talking about the W. Kamau Bell Cosby documentary, there was the two sides. That was done very, very well in that one. I just didn't feel like it was done that way in this one. And then the other part about this one that I felt like it was just really rough for me to watch is just the context of it. Like, I'm not a fan of trying to read up or entertain myself by kids being sexually assaulted. So that's why I didn't want to rewatch it. But I will say, at least based off of the stories that the two kids had, their testimony, their perspective, I'm with you. I could see it happening. I could absolutely see it happening. Whether they're lying or not, that's not for me to determine. But they have a very believable story, and that's hard for me to sit with.
Do you feel that it would have been a better documentary? And I'm not saying it's bad, and I know you're not either, but if it was more like Kamala Bell's, where it was like two sides, where you had you had more Michael Jackson defenders,
Yeah.
versus just two. Because like the funny thing is you watch it and then you're like, okay, it's these two guys are going to tell the whole story the whole time, and there's not a lot of others. And I mean, you know, it was, I guess the thing I did learn, which is now looking back at it, was like how much like he had those kids, like he changed their lives at the end of the day too.
He did.
Like that one guy became one of the greatest choreographers. And you know, I mean, he changed their lives for good and bad.
Right.
Okay. I'll really put it that way. Did you find yourself as a parent looking down? Because I tried really hard not to, but there were scenes when I'm listening to the parents of these kids talk, and you're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you?" But mind you, in your mind, you're like, everything's like hindsight's 2020 always, right? And it's easy to look back at people when you know the outcome or you knew what happened and say, how could you let that happen? Because you know this, and I'm not trying to put money in front of it, but you know, when the mom's describing that they're flying all over the world and everything's taken care of, and you have this really rich celebrity who's very interested and wants to hang out with your kid, and it's because he dances like him and all that, you're just like, oh, he's going to put him in, you know. There are those times you're like, oh, that could be like, you know, like if my son wants to be a baseball player and Greg Maddux just flew him out everywhere. It's like wanted him. Mind you, am I going to let him sleep in his room? Hell no.
Right.
Hell no. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Like
no,
that's where I like had that hard time because I was trying not to be judgy to him. Be like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And I'd be like, okay, I understand that. But then when they'd be like, well, you know, and I didn't think anything wrong with it. Like when there was a one family, they went to visit Neverland Ranch. And the kid they were all supposed to go on that RV trip to the Grand Canyon. And then the mom's like, and Michael was just like, oh, well, we can do whatever we want. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Just stay with him for the weekend. And it was like, in what world would you just be like, yeah, that's fine. And I'm just going to go with my family here. Like the one side of me would be like, fuck no, we're all getting an RV. That's what we plan to do. Because I planned it. Two, like it's my kid. I'm not leaving it with a stranger all fucking week or however long it was.
Like I have an issue with a lot of things. We had Walt from the B-Raw podcast, and I don't remember who the comedian we were talking about was, but he says, what do you think was going to happen when you got into the comedian's room? Louis C.K. And like, there's that, like, yeah, maybe should Louis C.K. have done that? No. Should he have communicated it better if that was his intention? Yeah, maybe. Were either of us there to identify what happened? No. So that being the case, those are two adults, right? Those are adults. Children cannot make these decisions on their behalf. And in that circumstance, the parent has the fault for exposing their child to this circumstance. If anything, Michael Jackson was an idol to these kids. They worshiped him to a certain level. They wanted him to embrace them, but they also wanted to be like him. He was somebody who they aspired to be. And as a family member or as a parent, you want to encourage your kids to follow their dreams, and you want to encourage them to, you know, do all the things in the world that you want them to do. But you shouldn't have them share a room. Like, I think that's the hard part, man. It's almost like that Curious Case in Natalia Grace documentary that we talked about a while back. Like, there's some serious issues with some stories that happen on behalf of the parents. There are some serious discrepancies that are happening there. Whether they actually molested her, whether they did whatever with her, there is some issues there. And in this documentary, the biggest thing that I take away from is it possible that all this shit happened? Sure, it's absolutely possible. Do the parents have a fault in it? You're fucking right, they do. You know, if Michael Jackson did abuse these kids, these two boys sexually, he should be frying in hell right now, plain and simple. But these parents share a fault too, because, you know, if your two girls were to, you know, you were to take them to their favorite concert, and the musician picks you guys out from the crowd, and the girls go on stage. Next thing you know, you're backstage, and then the artist says, "Hey, Dad, why don't you just leave them here for the night?" What the fuck are you gonna do? The answer could be no, and by the way, fuck no, and this is not what we're doing. And that was the hardest part when I was watching this shit.
Well, especially because you remember being a 10-year-old, you and having a 10-year-old. You know, the decisions they're making is like, this is just cool. Their innocent decision making in their head at that time is, I'm going to hang out with this amazing star I idolize, get to eat Rocky Road ice cream, watch movies with them all night, and tell them my stories. And like that's where they go, where they're like, yeah, of course I should stay tonight. And you, as a parent, go, no, that's as a parent, your job is to be a protector and be like, no, I don't allow those things to happen. Doesn't mean everybody that wants your kid to stay tonight is going to be a pedo. Okay, I'm not saying that, but it's the point. Like you're already. You're letting a situation happen that is easily avoidable.
Yep.
And so, I mean, do you feel with these parents in it? I mean, mainly the two, that money was a big blinder for them.
I think it was, and I think you can find that in a lot of different areas. Not necessarily with Michael Jackson, but you can find it with other celebrities too, where they allow things to happen because of the money, and whether it be an adult or a child. Primarily, when you're talking about the child, it's the parents that are looking at that. But when you're talking about an adult or a child in the circumstance, they're looking at the celebrity of it. They're looking at the idol of it. They're looking at this is the person who I'd like to be. And honestly, when you have so much respect and envy and worship of somebody, I guess I think it allows you to take chances with what's going to happen, or maybe you put some walls down, or maybe you see a red flag and you go, it can't happen. It's Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? So I do think that there is that. But yeah, I mean, long story short, did Michael Jackson do it? It's debatable, man. I don't think that we'll ever know. The assumption is, I mean, do you assume that he did it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, especially when the one boy, it was interesting too, the dichotomy, the only unbiased thing in it, or, I guess two sides, was one boy felt like he was in love with him.
Yeah.
And like it was an actual relationship. And I'm not saying it was a correct relationship, but you know what I mean? And then the other one was pretty much just like, yeah, I got touched and it fucked my life up.
Yeah.
Like it changed me as a person, which it would change anybody. And I feel bad for that person. But that was the only thing of that. I mean, that was, but yeah, in my mind it happened. I can't see it any other way. Like I said, I watched it and was just like, yeah, that makes sense. And it was just more like, let me find out the little details behind it that people were talking about. Like, okay, because I think the documentary came out, like you said, 2018 or something like that. I didn't watch it because it was something to me that I already felt like I knew. And I also don't like want to hear terrible things happening to kids. Me and you were the same way. But it was one of those things, like I felt like I knew everything I already needed to know.
Right.
Like I didn't feel like I was going into it learning more. Now let's just do this for the listeners out there. What grade are you giving this documentary series? Because I think HBO does a great job. But
this
what
isn't one of their better ones. I don't think. I'd give this one a C. Be a solid C. I felt like there were way too many questions that were spawned from the documentary. Like it basically, like you said, it basically told me what I thought had happened. Because I think he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't necessarily provide any proof. And then it just said, and Michael Jackson's estate denies everything. And I was just like, well, that's, I guess I appreciate documentaries a little bit more when there's a little bit more substance, or you get something more out of it.
B- for me. I agree with you on almost all those points. The one thing I found funny is I typically am on here saying I want it to be a fucking movie, or I want it to be quick and concise and to the point. And I felt that there was no way you could have made this one episode.
No.
It was too long.
No.
But I felt 2 wasn't enough. And I'm not saying there was more reasons out there, but the reason I say that is it would be nice to hear from the other side. Yeah. It would be nice to hear from other people, because it felt more like a documentary of 2 boys, you know what I mean? And their journey through it, and just their story, instead of more like the Cosby one, where it's like, well, here's the information we gathered over here, and here's the information we gathered over here. It's essentially, let's sit these 2 down who were part of this and get their whole story and their biography. Right. I mean, the movie could have been called, the 2 Lost Boys, for all I'm concerned, out of Neverland. You know what I mean? Because that was the other thing that I felt more of. It was like, I actually learned more about these 2 kids, or these 2 men now, in the movie than Michael Jackson. Because like I said, I was like, yeah, I could see that happening. So B- for me. Not one of their better ones, but still good, still worth a watch. It's hard to say, like, as an MJ fan, Like, watch. Like, I was trying to put this in a good way, Beaver. Like, if you're a fan of Michael Jackson, you should go watch this fucking movie. But you know what I mean? Like, how do I don't know, if you just want to know things. Like, what? I mean, how do I put that, Bjorn? Like, what's the best way to say that?
I'm just gonna say if you're interested in this stuff, watch it. If you're not, then I don't recommend it. So, but like what Cat Williams said. So Cat Williams is a comedian, and he made a couple stand up jokes about Michael Jackson. But he makes a good point. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So if there's all these accusations going on, like, oh my God, Whitney Houston's doing coke. She smoked her kneecaps off. Like, that's part of his joke, right? The other part of his joke is that if you're trying to attract little kids, what do you think you're going to have at Neverland Ranch? You're going to have a petting zoo, a fucking Ferris wheel, the whole works. And he's like, if I'm trying to get women over, I've got a silk pillowcase, so that way they don't have to worry about their hair being put up. I've got some Alizé, in the house, not because I drink Alizé, but the bitches do, et cetera, so forth. So, I mean, where there is smoke, there's fire. So I'll it is what it is. But let's transition back to Michael Jackson as the artist. The one thing that we do on here, and we do pretty well, in my opinion, is we do talk some Everlasting Jukebox stuff, and we do have good conversations that are oddly different. Like, you and I tend to take a different approach on the music. So, Michael Jackson had 10 studio albums. So in these 10 studio albums, my man, let's rank them from worst to best. And I don't think that there's I'm going to kind of do a prerequisite here. I don't think that there's a bad album that Michael Jackson has done. I just like more albums more than others, if that makes sense.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I think there are bad albums, and I think there's albums that I don't give a fuck about, because I'm going to be upfront with you too. If you said a top 5 list, it would have been easy. I understand there was only 10 studio albums, and you said rank them from worst to best. My bottom 5, I don't even know if I've listened to all of them front to back and know a lot of songs on them. I'm one of those, I'll admit this, I'm a Michael Jackson fan of the sense of I'm a Michael Jackson fan of everything that came out when he was big and what I liked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the 80s to the 90s was essentially my area of expertise of Michael Jackson. When he was a little kid and all that bullshit, didn't fucking care. And
you
then
don't
when
like
he lost
Lil
his
Michael?
No, I do not. I don't care about fucking Rock and Robin. I don't care about the little ABC school bus. I don't care about the Jackson 5. I don't give a fuck about Tito. I don't care that his skin was darker. I don't care that he had a little afro. I don't care that he was on TV. I don't give a shit about bell bombs, any of that. I don't care. I don't like that Santa was kissing his mom or some bullshit. I don't know. Mommy's kissing Santa Claus. I'm not a fan of that voice style. I'm not a fan of kids singers. I'm not a fan of any of that. I hate the 70s. I hate hippies. I hate all that. So you can take all that and put it in a damn garbage can and get rid of it. Now, the funny thing is, I want to start this list. My least favorite album of all time, I guess, number 10 is Invincible. It's not even from that whole thing I just went off on. But Invincible, I just remember when that came out, I looked at it and went, that's going to be a pile of garbage. That's going to be a pile of garbage. I'm never going to need to listen to it. I tried, I think, a couple tracks and went, nope, not for me. It's not, it's almost like a try-hard album. It's like when you grow out of boy band phase, or you grow out of the years of what made somebody big. The times have changed, bro. Get on with it. I'm done. I don't need it. So
can I just add that that's my bottom album too?
Good. And why? Is it the same fucking reasons or what?
I think that he had so many albums that came out before that were better, that it was almost like he was trying too hard, and that was my big takeaway from it.
Right. Number 9 for you then?
Number 9 for me is actually Michael Jackson, Music and Me, came out in 1973.
Me too.
The reason why I don't like this one as much is because you had little Michael starting to become, Big Michael, or however you want to say it. And so you could hear a lot of his puberty voice in it.
Yep.
And I just did not like that. Like, I like little Michael and I like old Michael. The puberty voice Michael is just not my game. So
it's I call it his dirt lip album. And what I mean by that is when the guy, the bro shows up to junior high, like dance, and it tries to grow a mustache, and you're just like, please get rid of it. That's what that album is. It is funny that is my number 9 too. I also looked at the year and went, yeah, fuck that. Put it on there. For number 8 for me was Ben.
Okay.
And there's a few things. So big shout out to our fan, Ben Ammett, who's a huge fan of ours. He's the biggest Michael Jackson fan I ever met. This is down that low for you just because of your name, Ben. I really can give a shit about any song on this album. I don't care. I don't like the year. I don't like any of it. So fuck it. What's your number 8, B-word? I hope it's Ben.
No, it's not Ben. It's Forever Michael. So Forever
Okay.
Michael came out in 1975. I just didn't feel like that as far as the tracks go on this, that there were enough popular tracks, I guess, for me, or enough, we call them bangers now, but like back then it just like it was an album, and yeah, it was talented. I just didn't feel like there were any like hits, if that makes sense.
Number 7 then.
Ben.
Here's what I hate. I understand, you did a very good job writing the rundown, and we're going to do the 10 albums. But like when we're talking through this, these ones, it's pretty much just like shitting before wiping. Like we're just not even like, we're just like, oh, there it is. Yeah, that one.
Yep.
That one. Number 7 for me is History. Stupid album.
Oh.
Think it sucks.
Okay.
That's my take. It sucks.
So history's close. But my next one is Gotta Be There, 1972. This one had, Rockin' Robin, Ain't No Sunshine. It had some good songs on it. And I felt like this one is quintessential Little Michael. But the reason why History makes it a little bit more is because I felt like there were some other songs in there, particularly like Scream, in Invincible in History, that I liked a little bit better than some of the ones on Gotta Be There. So basically mine goes Gotta Be There and then History. So we're really close.
So my next one's Forever Michael. Fuck that album. Don't even want to talk about it. The number 5 is Gotta Be There. And here's why. B-word. I don't even like the album. And it's in my top 5 because it's, as you said, it's quintessential. There's memorable songs that everybody knows. Like if you got in my car and like, I don't want to listen to this shit, but if you're like, hey, throw it on, those songs are on there just because those are songs that everybody knows and somebody can sing along to. I hate it. I hate everything about it. That's why it's the bottom of the barrel of number 5. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Fuck 1972. Fuck that fucking album. Like, let's actually get to the good shit now, please.
All right. So now we're doing 4 through 1 now. Is that where we're at?
4 through 1. Yep.
Okay. So number 4 for me is actually Dangerous, 1991. Some of the songs on here were Black or White, Gone Too Soon, Will You Be There. I thought Black or White was a good song. It was probably the leading song on this album, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the music video a lot more, I think, than the actual song itself, because that music video was fantastic with him and Janet in there. But that's my number 4.
Mine's Off the Wall.
Okay.
Good album. Not my favorite for what I was listening to. Great bangers on it. I know a lot of people will say it should be higher, but the problem is when you get 4 through 1, they're pretty interchangeable. I think mine's going to be like the one that surprises most people. But Off the Wall, good album. I mean, I'm presuming that's your number 3.
That's my number 3. I like the song "Rock with You." Yeah. I wanna rock with you. I just love that song, dude. Yeah, so that's why it's number 3 for me. So now that was your number 3 as well?
No, that was my number 4.
Okay,
and I knew that was your number 3. My number 3 is Thriller, which people are going to hate me for that.
Okay,
but I think there are 2 better albums than Thriller. And I mean, if you know the list now, you already know. But Thriller's a good album, but Thriller's a music video. Thriller's one fucking song. I know there's other songs on that album, but guess what? I don't know what they are. I don't know.
Oh,
I know the song. I know
know
you do. I know you do, but and I know most other people do, but guess what? I don't. I know Thriller as the one song, the 10-minute music video. That's all I need to know. That's all you need to know from that album.
One of the greatest music videos ever. But Thriller, so top 2. So I'm saying my top 2. I'll let you finish it out. My top 2. So I have Thriller at number 2.
Yeah.
Just some songs that are on Thriller: Beat It, Thriller, Billie Jean, Want to Be Starting Something, Pretty Young Thing. Dude, Billie Jean, are you kidding me? Like, we're gonna get into singles here in a minute, but
I have a whole argument against that already.
Okay, fantastic. And number 1 is Bad. Like Bad is Michael Jackson's best album, to me at least. You have Bad, you have Man in the Mirror, which I think is an underrated song. Dirty Diana, Smooth Criminal. Bad is definitely my favorite Michael Jackson album.
Bad's number 2. Dangerous is number 1. Dangerous is number favorite.
You're stupid.
No, shut up. Stop.
You
Dangerous
are so
is my
stupid.
Favorite album of all time. I love how that was the one album where he started mixing so many guitar solos, so many good guests. Like it's a fucking killer album. The danceability, everything about it is awesome because every song too is different. You're meaning to tell me that Thriller, the fucking song named after the greatest music video ever and the best single, and yeah, there's other songs that nobody gives a shit. Bad, amazing album, but every song almost sounds more like the same. Dangerous is a better catalog of like difference.
That's so why fucking stupid.
I don't care. I love Dangerous. Stupid. Dangerous, my favorite. And it best album artwork too.
All right,
best
all right.
album.
No,
artwork.
I'll give you the album artwork. So, all right, I expect that in your top 5, you're going to have more Dangerous songs on your top 5. Okay, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I do.
No.
No, I have 3.
You're a fucking douchebag.
I'm a degenerate. I have
such
3
a
Dangerous songs on here.
All right, let's get into top 5. So typically we have honorable mentions. So what are your 2 honorable mentions for your top 5?
Weird Al's "I'm Fat."
That doesn't count.
Oh, sorry. Bad is it's. I want to put "Beat It" on there, but me.
Oh, you mean Weird Al's "Eat It"?
Yeah, but me being the child I am, I think of masturbation. And now that I watched Leaving Neverland, nothing's safe. So Beat It couldn't make my honorable mentions, but that did. And then here's the thing: a song I hate, "Rockin' Robin." "Rockin' Robin" is an honorable mention because I think it's a song that you can show any living generation today, and everybody knows it. And I even mean young kids. You can do that and they'll understand it. Old people know that song. Young people know that song, people in our age. And that, I think, is something that is rare now, that everybody can get along around one song. So that's why.
Okay. My first honorable mention is Diana Ross with the Jackson 5, and it's "I Want You Back." I like the Jackson 5, honestly. It's something that I thought it was just a good song. I thought it was a good band, but it's not Michael Jackson, so therefore it has to be an honorable mention. Like it's the Jackson 5. You know what I mean? Same thing with "I'll Be There." "I'll Be There" was originally the Jackson 5 song, and then it was then covered by Mariah Carey. Now Mariah Carey did a lot better job at "I'll Be There," in my opinion. But "I'll Be There" was a good song. So those are my 2 honorable mentions. So with that, do you just want to go back and forth and go 5 to 1?
Yeah, number 5 is Thriller.
Okay.
Thriller has grown less on me over the years. I treat it more like a Halloween song. It's an event more than it's a song.
Okay.
There's more to it. It's a music video more than it's a song. It's an album more than it's a song. You know what I mean? It's one of those ones. It's fucking long. It's long, especially listening to the whole thing. It's very catchy. It's got a great, but it's one of those rare songs in the world where there's more that goes into it than just listening to it and enjoying it.
Right.
It's like you almost have to do the dance.
Right.
You almost have to remember that you really want to listen to the narrator. So it's one of those, it's an amazing song. It'll never be like my number 1. It's great, but because there's way more into it, but I can't leave it off my top 5 list.
It makes sense. My number 5 is "Smooth Criminal." I like "Smooth Criminal." I enjoy the Alien Ant Farm part of "Smooth Criminal," but nothing's going to beat out Michael. That was a great song. The way that he vocalized it, the way the lyrics, and what's funny is on the Bad album, which is where "Smooth Criminal" came from, you're talking about a lot of songs like "Bad" or "Beat It" that have a very aggressive tone. "Smooth Criminal" had a very aggressive tone, and he was criticized heavily for it. And I enjoy "Smooth Criminal," so "Smooth Criminal" is my number 5. What's your number 4?
Dangerous. I love the song "Dangerous." It was one of those ones when I was a kid, I thought I sounded like Michael Jackson singing it. It was the number 1 song I loved to sing along to. The title track of my favorite album. I just like that song. I think it's actually really cool, and so it's one of those things. Like the one thing is you forget how much of an artist he was, because all his music videos, like they're so memorable to me with each song that it's like you knew that when a song came out, you had to go see the video, because he was one of those people that made it such an art around everything, like the showmanship, everything. I think that's why he was the biggest in the world. But number 4 is Dangerous. What's yours?
Rock With You. I wanna rock with you. I just like the song. It's a dance song, but it's also got that romantic appeal to it. I just love it. I love the song. It's been used in a lot of different ways. It's been copied, but that's a great song. That's a great song to me.
Now I will say that is a music video you don't need to watch. It's weird. So out of all his music videos, it's probably one of his worst. So you can skip that music video, everybody. But good song. Number 3 for me is one that my brother always loved to make fun of me for, because I love the song "Keep It in the Closet." It's very eye opening to me now. But I like that song. I like him and the girl going back and forth and talking. And like it was one of those ones. Like I remember like in junior high listening to it. Like I know now what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
And so I just like that track. It's always been one of my favorite tracks. That was one of the number 1 tracks I used to warm up to on the mound when I'd get ready for a baseball game. So I dig it.
Nice. My next one is The Way You Make Me Feel off the Bad album. The way you make me feel. I just love that one, dude. It's fucking.
Do that again for me, please.
Why? The way you make me feel.
The face you're making. Dude,
I know, dude.
He is like, you're into it.
Oh, dude, I fucking
you're
love
getting
that
into
song.
it.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a good fucking song. It's one of those ones that you know all the lyrics to. You can dance to it. You can fuck to it. I think it's a great song.
I like that. Number 2 is Dirty Diana. Dirty Diana is one of my favorite songs. It's the epitome of the buildup.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes a while to get there, and it's my favorite song about him talking about a woman. Billie Jean cannot touch Dirty Diana. Dirty Diana is far superior of a song. It is a way better song. He does so much more than fucking Billie Jean. And I hope Billie Jean's number 2, so you can try to argue against me and be wrong, B-word, because Dirty Diana is a way better song.
Billie Jean is my number 2. And the reason why Billie Jean is my number 2 is because on the Thriller album, this one captured that youthful, almost nervous tone with the whole Billie Jean thing. The song, the lyrics are great. It was one of those ones. I didn't really like the music video, although there's a lot of people that like the music video. I like Dirty Diana. I'm not going to argue with that. Doesn't follow my top 5, but I like Billie Jean. Billie Jean's my number 2.
Nice. What's your number 1?
My number 1's underrated. My number 1 is probably somebody will probably never guess what my number 1 is without me revealing it. Man in the Mirror.
Really?
I love Man in the Mirror off the Bad album. It was one of those ones where he's talking, obviously Man in the Mirror, he's talking to himself. But it's one of those ones that it demonstrates vulnerability. He's using it to, like the vocal tracks in it too. I mean, they're just great. I love Man in the Mirror. I think it's really good. And I know it doesn't really sample from it, but even Lil Wayne's Man in the Mirror is inspired from it. And I like his Man in the Mirror. I just think that from an artistry perspective, from the way that he wrote the song to the way that the song is performed, I think it's his best song.
Mine is easily guessable. Mine, I think, is the one for our age group that was like the blow up song that almost got everybody into Michael Jackson. Mind you, if you weren't already listening to him before, but it's Black or White. The music video, the intro. I remember just playing it was one of those songs where you played the intro of the kid's dad banging on the door and you just felt so cool listening to that part.
I think I said that Black or White had Janet Jackson in it earlier. Did I say that?
I don't remember that part.
But if I said that, I was wrong. I think I think that's Scream. But yeah, Black or White.
Black or White was that song, like, I think that made him, for our generation, like, blow to that star. I could be wrong there, but I'll never forget everything about that. Macaulay Culkin was in that video with him. I mean, that was the big track. And like I said, Is it the one I'm always throwing on? No, but is it my number one because of how it introduced me to Michael and made me like a huge fan? Yeah. So
Yeah,
I can't deny that. I can't deny that.
I can appreciate that, man. I also appreciate that neither of us are pedos. Just a side note, I was called something this week that made me question a whole lot of things. I was called it by a lesbian, no less. I was called
What were you called?
himbo. Have you ever heard of a himbo?
What's a himbo?
So a himbo is a man version of a bimbo, and I decided that I would pull the definition out for you. So according to Wikipedia, it uses the words him and the words bimbo, and it's a slang term for somebody who's attractive but unintelligent. And I figured, well, I'm not necessarily attractive. I would say that I'm more intelligent, but I would say if I'm a himbo, you're definitely a himbo.
I'm a himbo.
So we're himbos together.
You give this himbo a Jimbo.
Yes.
Those are my pronouns now. Himbo and Jimbo.
Himbo and Jimbo. So with that, man, thank you again for recording with me. Thanks for all the Patreon people supporting our show still. And with that, what do you got for us?
Thanks for all the dirty talk, and come back and get sanitized.